Hey, what's up, everybody? Shark here. I'm bringing you the updated LCS Summer Top Lane tier list. I made a video a few weeks back about where I had all the top laners as of week 5. I was working through the other roles, but ended up being distracted by a few things, and honestly, like, I think it's probably just better to do something at the end of the split, just because we get that complete picture. We get it generally around a 12 to 18 game sample size for most of these players, and then now we can truly differentiate everyone, and especially because there's the 18 playoff, we can differentiate between everybody, right? So, criteria of this list predominantly looking at the individual performance of these players, putting in a bit on team overall team performance as well, just because maybe they didn't look particularly great, but they fit a particular niche on their team that they need to fill. So that definitely plays into it. This is as of end of week 9, end of the regular season summer split. And then there's one other small caveat. I'm going to be leaving out the players that played 6 or less games, just because when other players have played 18 games, it's kind of hard to truly compare, like, apples to apples, kind of. So I'm going to be leaving out Soaz, Lorlo, and who was the other player? It was Soaz, Lorlo, and let me check who else played less games. And Deuce on CLG. So that's what we're going to be leaving out here. But anyway, let's get this rolling. So first on the list here, we have Viper. So Viper is predominantly a carry player. He's, possibly the best Riven in the LCS. He has a really good overall win rate with a champion. He did play her one time, and he won the game, and he did carry the game. So I guess that's one thing you can always kind of count on him for. And typically, that's something that most teams would want to ban, just because it is a targeted ban towards him. In the beginning of the split, he was pretty terrible. He was getting caught out a lot. He was forcing a lot of plays that he shouldn't have, playing up in lane very aggressively with really no regard or care for the other top laner or the jungler and possibly mid laner coming up there to roam. But I think it was predominantly just because Dig through the first 5 to 6 games just looked like a dead team. I mean, nobody was really doing anything. Everybody was just kind of sitting in lane, just slowly getting choked out and losing the game. So, was it the right thing? Maybe not, but I'll give him some credit for trying to fix the dumpster fire that was Dig at the beginning of the split. I think some of those problems did get a bit better, but it's not like he was a particularly great laner or anything. That was never really Viper's strength. He was a bit more of the split push and team fighter. He was that type of player. But I mean, he's definitely not top tier, top laner in the LCS. But I do think he's at best like middle of the pack or so. So I'm gonna put him in C tier for now. I definitely stepped it up a little bit towards the end of the split, because I think I had him at I think he was at D tier on my first tier list. So he's moved up a bit, and Dig has performed considerably better since they did put him in. All right, next up we got Kumo. Kumo only played, I believe it was 8 games in the split, and I believe he won 4-4 overall, or maybe 5-5. No, he won 5-5. I think he played 10 games total before they made the swap with him and Jizuke for Huni and Golden Glue. At the beginning of the split, Kumo looked really good. I mean, he was super good at Volibear. I think that was definitely his best champion, and it was a meta champion. I know there was a game against, I believe it was TL, where him and Svenskeren used the Volibear Kindred combo to really great effect, and that's pretty much what carried the game and allowed them to win. Kumo's mainly a carry player. He's never really been super proficient on tanks, which is a definite downside with this meta, just because typically you want your tank or top laner would be kind of a more frontline champion. Either that or maybe you can get away with like an assassin like Kennen or something flanking. But I think the most reliable way to win an NA is typically to have a more tanky boy as your top laner. Was pretty good in lane as far as his CSD stats go at 10 and 15. However, as the split went on, he did seem to get caught out more, and he died a lot. Past week 2 where they were 3-1, and then they went 1-3 to kind of close it out through the first 4 weeks of play. And yeah, they're just really looking like a mediocre team. I think they still do. But Kumo, I think he's better than Viper. Played better than Viper overall. So he's C tier and above Viper for me. All right, next up we have Licorice. I made this tier list after Cloud9 lost their first game. And I think I did glow up Licorice a little bit too much. I mean, he's definitely still a great player. I think he's still the best overall top laner we have in the LCS. But I didn't really consider some of the faults that he had. I mean, so one thing was he did get solo killed several times, and he also would get caught out just in lane, just kind of pushed up too far, and he would just get ganked. He was ganked pretty often, and the enemy team had a decent success rate with actually getting the kill on Licorice. But other than that, I mean, he's first in kills in top laners, second in damage per minute, and he's first in CSD at 10 and 15. So one advantage is he does build his own leads, which is something that Cloud9 really needs out of him, because they're typically playing towards Blabber. Niski is, and bot lane is always looking for Prio in order to secure dragons. That's the reason why they won Spring, and it's the reason why they started out 9-0 and look so dominant again in summer. Was that reason? Might have changed a bit for them with some of the champs they're good at, which I think led to them slumping a bit. But Licorice did get a good number of solo kills as well. He can split push. He's good on tanks and carries, both. Like I said, he can split push, and I mean, I guess the only other thing that I would say just about laning is he's definitely a dominant laner on his own. But he did seem to push the envelope a lot, and did force a lot of errors out of himself, which, I mean, top lane isn't super important right now in the meta just because of Dragon Soul. But I mean, you really shouldn't just be dying recklessly like that. So he was S tier for me in the first tier list, but I'm not getting him down to A just because another thing is I don't think he's by far and away the best top laner anymore. He's definitely, I think, still the best, but I think like Someday has definitely caught up, or like he's been knocked down a peg or two, and he's now towards that Someday kind of level. Different team environments, obviously, different situations, but I think A tier is fair in terms of LCS. Next up, hey, we got the boy, we got Someday. Someday is a great player. I think he's the second best top laner in the LCS. He's second in kills for top lane, first in KDA, and third in DPM. He's a really good split pusher, although I think he does that because 100 Thieves was a pretty big dumpster fire before they made some of the roster changes, and I still think in some ways they're still not a real complete team and a realistic contender for Worlds. Or I would say like definitely not the split, but I don't think Worlds either. But he's a great Camille player, really good gangplank player. He's good at strong and weak side. He just, one thing with him is it seems like he is more than happy with playing weak side at times, when I think like he should be the carry of this team. I mean, like, his Cody Sun has been historically more of a team fight AD carry as opposed to like a dominant laner. And Ryoma is nothing special in the mid lane. So I feel like this should be his team. He should get the picks he wants, because I even heard in the co-streams of the Meteos and Sneaky, there was the "if coach he wants" meme with him, where it seems like he gives in a little bit too much. I think he needs to, I don't know if that's true, but if that is true, just he should speak up and say, like, I need this to play the best. But he's equally good at tanks and carries. I think he's just a great player overall. I think he's just good for the region, and I think he sounds like he's a great teammate because he is willing to sacrifice and do what the team feels like is needed. So, I have no problem putting him A tier, just below Licorice. Super, super solid player, definitely. Impact. Impact was A tier in my first tier list. I think he's been knocked down a bit because I really did. He had that Shen performance where he like popped off and was split pushing, and he had like seven. He was like 702 at the end of the game. But I didn't really consider, like, I look back at it and he was getting caught out a lot. Um, like early on the split, and he's still up there as far as like deaths overall go in the LCS. So that's definitely a knock to him overall. But with him back historically, he's been like one of the best tank players NA's ever had or seen. And it kind of fits in. This is like his meta. Like, he's a really good Shen player. I think he's had his best performances on Shen. He's a good Ornn. I mean, I think pretty much any tank or like even like most cases like bruisers, he's gonna play, and I think he has no problem with it. He's an excellent weak side player, just with the top die memes and all that. But yeah, beginning of the split was like pretty rough for him. But I think he's kind of hit his stride. He pretty much just plays it safe in lane, split pushes sometimes, and he's there for team fights, which that's Liquid's MO. And yeah, I guess with the deaths, him and Core JJ are the main source of engage for the team because typically Jensen's playing like a control mage, and he recently played a Kali, but for the most part it's been like Syndra, Ori, Azir, and like TF for him. So TF can kind of set up team fights with the CC, but it's mainly Impact with like Ornhorn or diving into Shen. So I don't think he's quite A tier. I don't think he's quite on Licorice Someday level, but I think he's definitely a very close B, very close in B. He's definitely towards the top of B tier for me. Next up, we have Hauntzer on Golden Guardians. Hauntzer is a really good weak side player. He's good at tanks. He can play carries. He had some really good Kennen performances this split. I think also his weak side playstyle that he's kind of adopted on this team really enables like Closer to be aggressive, and he absorbs pressure for the team overall, and he allows Closer to play some of those more carry-oriented champions because Hauntser's played like Sion and Ornn and champions like that need to be kind of the front line and engage the team. So, Closer can play like the Nidalees and the Graves and things that deal damage and contribute that way in team fights. He's a good laner. He's top 3 in CSD, even typically just playing the weak side, playing a lot of tanks, which, definitely commendable. I think he's just really solid overall top laner and just kind of the glue piece for Golden Guardians. And also, by him playing weak side, it allows FBI and Huhi to be more aggressive, which definitely fits FBI's playstyle, with him wanting to be more lane dominant in the bot lane and requiring a bit more attention. And they also can use that bot lane advantage they get in most matchups to help secure dragons. So, Hauntzer for me, good player, B tier. I think he's probably just under Impact, but hey, he's definitely like middle to upper top laners in the LCS. Next up, we have Huni. Huni I was torn by because, I don't know, I think like EG is a worse team with Huni Golden Glue because I feel like they kind of changed their playstyle to be like a worse version of like Liquid or FlyQuest kind of in a way. But Huni is a very he's a very stubborn player in his playstyle. That's what I was looking for. In that, like, he always wants to be pushed up. He always wants to create his own advantage. Sometimes just not really caring about where the enemy jungler's at, and he gets caught out. His champion pool is also just kind of strange for a top laner because he seems to favor mages like Rumble, Cassiopeia. I mean, at Worlds, he was playing like Ezreal top. He likes the ranged champions, the ranged, magic damage or mage champions to, really push the envelope early and just kind of ram down the other enemy top laner's throat. I think like it's just the wrong meta for him, and I think like the main thing with bringing him in is they want him to be an import or a resident for next season. That way they can have Jizuke and him on the team, which I think could be kind of a crazy team. I mean, if like I could see if both of them somehow get advantages, like I could see them beating any team in the LCS. I mean, because both of them are mechanically skilled players, aggressive players. But yeah, another thing is I don't know. I think it's the wrong meta for him because like he was best on in NA with Immortals and Echo Fox, where the junglers specifically played around him with Rainover and Dardoch, and that's where they found success. But on this meta, you got to prioritize bot side. I think you got to get Dragon Soul. That's a very simple win condition if you can actually get it. So I'm torn between C and D tier for Huni. I think I'm gonna put him in low C tier for me. I through the about 8 game sample size with him. I haven't been that impressed overall. I think he's gotten some counter picks that he hasn't been that effective on, and it's I don't know. Like I said, I think it's easier to win through an aggressive playmaking mid laner than it is through a aggressive playmaking top laner at this point. So I just don't think it's the right meta for him. Next up, we got Broken Blade. Broken Blade is a great carry player and strong side player. He can play Ornn and things like Ornn is his main like weak side champion, but I think like most top laners can play that kind of champ. One thing with him is when he is forced to play weak side, the best weak side carry kind of champion for top lane would be Gangplank, and Broken Blade is not historically good on that champion, and I think that can be a problem, especially when they have Doublelift on the team now, and Doublelift is a player who has always demanded resources and demanded attention, and I think in this meta it's more important to play towards bot side as well. So I think he was the most impacted by that change with the roster change, because I think like in a way the Kabe Biofrost lane should have worked out a little bit better for him, but it just didn't. But he had a really good Aurelia game versus Cloud9. Just beaten down. I think he was pretty much the main carry of that game, honestly. Played that game really well. But yeah, the big thing with him is he's like Huni in the sense that he's much better strong side than he is weak side. So I'm going to put him in B tier. And I'm torn between if I want to put him above Haunter or not, because I think Haunter's just been the model of consistency this whole split. I think I'd put Broken Blade below Haunter for now, just because I think Broken Blade has had higher highs, but he's definitely had much lower lows this split. But, Broken Blade has looked good in playoffs before, especially in that spring 2019 season, so he could turn it up for playoffs. Or TSM's in pretty decent position to, do well there and go to Worlds possibly. So next we have Solo. Solo is similar to like Impact, where he's a really good weak side, low econ, low resource player, really good tank player. He recently actually won a tank v tank matchup against Alorum when he was Maokai, and Alorum was on Ornn, which I thought was kind of funny. He kind of dumped him. But yeah, he's just basically he's also a really good Renekton player. He totally just smurfed on Cloud9 and TL. I believe both with the pick. Especially TL. He totally destroyed Impact when he was on Kennen, and Kennen's technically the counter matchup to Renekton. But I think he also was a great thing when they swapped Viper him for Viper for him, because I think with him playing weak side and playing a lot of tanks, it really enables PoE to build that like late game insurance policy, team fighter, damage dealer. Him and Santorin both set him up for that, so I think he's a really good glue piece for the team. I would say honestly he's probably, I'm gonna do this actually. Yeah, I think this is it, because honestly, the top lane right now, both these players have been pretty consistent. I don't think Haunter and Solo have really had true slumps. this split, I think they've been pretty consistent throughout. So I'm going to put these two at the top of B tier for now. So I think I'm fine with putting Solo top of B tier and roughly like third, fourth best top laner in the LCS. Next we have Alorum. Alorum is a player who's very limited in his champion pool. He's like the opposite of Huni, where like he plays tanks, and that's pretty much about it. He's played Sion, Ornn, I believe Maokai as well. At some point, I think he played him. He's meant to play weak side, but he has had a ton of deaths. I mean, granted, Immortals isn't a great team by any stretch. Typically, the bad teams are going to have a lot more deaths because they're losing the game. But, I mean, he had 48 deaths in 14 games. And, like, Ruin, who played 17 games, had 54. And, like, CLG was definitely tanking at the end of the year as well. So, I mean, he's died a lot. I mean, he's had some really bad laning performances. He just recently lost a tank v tank matchup super hard against Solo, where that's not meant to be a volatile matchup at all. And I mean, like, I feel like you just really have to mess up big time, because I mean, in the carry versus carry matchup, like, just a simple bad trade can lead to a kill. But like with tanks, like, you're just basically slapping each other with pillows the whole time. And as he managed to lose it pretty handily to Solo against FlyQuest. So honestly, I think Alorum. I'm putting him below Hootie. I think he's definitely like a bottom 3 top laner in the LCS. I mean, he does play tanks, does play weak sides, so it seems like, I mean, it's what he's good at, but it seems he's doing it for the team's sake, so I can't knock him too much for it, but just not particularly, I don't think he's been particularly great this season at all, for being honest, so comfortable putting him there. And then next we have Ruin on CLG. Ruin is kind of similar to like Huni in a lot of ways, where like he's a good carry player. Like his best champions, I would say, are like Camille and Jace. And he's like pretty good at split pushing, honestly. At least he was back last year with CLG when he was able to do so. This season, like, I think it's just like a bad meta for players like him. He's not that great at tanks. His landing stats aren't very good. I think for the whole year he's been pretty bad overall. I mean, it could be because like maybe him and Wiggly aren't in sync. But yeah, because like it's just weird. Like every time people talk about Ruin and scrims and stuff, I remember Doublelift said in a episode of I think it was Hotline League, where he was like, man, like Ruin's like the best top laner or the best mid laner that CLG has, because he's just clapping people in lane and scrims. And it seems like people hype him up quite a bit. I mean, I think it was all 13 pro as well in like summer 2019. So this guy like should be performing better, but he just was pretty bad, and I think he was a main reason why CLG was like as bad as they were, right, with Wiggly and the bot lane sometimes. So I think he's, I would say, the worst top laner in the LCS. And I think I'm going to put him in D tier, just because I think he's below even the guys in C tier. So, yeah, I think that would be everybody that's played 8 or more games in the LCS this season. So, this is the complete tier list for top laners in the summer 2020 season. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments section below. Feel free to say it was great or hey, it sucks. You have no idea what you're talking about. Fine either way. Definitely would like the discussion. But hey, thank you everybody for watching. Next up will be the jungle tier list. I plan to get that out sometime this week, as long as I don't get too busy with work and everything else going on in my life. But again, hey, thank you for watching. If you liked it, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and if you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing. Thank you. Everybody have a good one, and Shark out. Peace.